So the IASAS musicians, we have our 8 delegates per discipline, like 8 band kids, 8 choir, 8 strings. They basically put themselves in a vulnerable position. They put together a solo and they perform it for professional musicians, and they receive feedback and growth tips on how they can get even better. They're performing at an incredibly high level and then receiving feedback to get even better. So this year and the last couple of years, it's looked very different. Pre-COVID, there were 3 aspects of IASAS. There was performing as a soloist, you were performing as a chamber musician, meaning a small group, and then there was also an honor group, the large group comprised of all of the members of all the other schools. During COVID times, we are really emphasizing both the solo aspect and the chamber group aspect, because obviously the large group, unless you do it digitally, is impossible because no one's traveling. My favorite part of IASAS this year was just hanging out with the musicians. They're very cool people. Obviously COVID this year has caused us to be extra creative, and just seeing people adapt and run with every challenge that comes our way has been quite inspiring.
So forensics has 4 disciplines: original interpretation, original oratory, extemporaneous speaking, and impromptu speaking. And just a brief description of each. OI is essentially you're reading a text like from a novel or a poem and you're interpreting it just through your voice. And original oratory is when you write your own piece. Extemporaneous is just about current events. So you're given a prompt relating to current global issues, and you have about half an hour to prepare from a drive of research that you created. And impromptu is you get a word and a phrase, you have 1 minute to brainstorm it, and then you just deliver about a 5-minute speech.
This year's IASAS drama production was an improv show called Work in Progress. We had 12 students perform around 50 minutes of improv scenes. No scripts, no blocking, nothing. We made it all up on the spot, including tech. Something people ask is, how do you rehearse improv? A lot of the rehearsal process was experimentation, and that's really all that improv is playing and experimenting and just messing around. There's a lot of different forms. We experimented with props on the stage placed by someone not in the scene. You'll see us use blind lines.
Easy boomer scooch gorp gorp norp.
Usually the director tells us what they want and we make it happen. We have a lot more creative freedom in dance because we can choose all these fun colors and effects, which wouldn't really make sense in a play.
Interesting thing about our performance is that tech was completely improvised, which is really hard because a lot of what tech has to do is, like for the tech team working on dance,
we actually pre-program all the different lighting cues, so every time the lights change, that's a cue. So then during the actual show, you only just have to press one button. So we take all of the sound effects or music and put them into QLab, which is a software for running sound.
It's about timing the cues right and getting everything perfect. Whereas in drama, because it's improv, they have to, a lot of the time, tech punctuates the joke. They get to make the punchline because they get to end the scene with a blackout.
So in pre-COVID times, we used to travel, obviously, for IASAS, and we used to go to one of the 6 schools to perform our piece. This year, we're having to film it and then just send our recording to the to TAS, who are hosting this year. So it's a little bit different. It's actually been a real learning curve, learning to perform for film. It's quite helpful because it means we can pause and reshoot when stuff goes wrong, which obviously you can't do in a live show. So there's pros and cons, but obviously missing that collaboration and connection that we get when we get to go and travel. So our theme this year is caution signs, which at first I think sounds a bit weird. We've got 9 separate pieces. We are doing like caution speed bumps, beware of pickpocket. Each of them is inspired by a different caution sign that you might just see around.